Live.
Hi everyone,
Everybody
welcome to ADEX Pixel Expo, and today for Blue Green 101 session, we are having a panel of esteemed speakers from all over India and also from Bali. So without further ado, let me just introduce you to the moderator, and the moderator will then introduce the rest of the panelists and also the topic for today. So we have here with me today Commander Vishwanath Rajan, or fondly known as Vish. Hi Vish, how about wave? Like a bigger wave.
Hi.
Hi. So Vish is actually a founder and director of Scuba Evolution India Private Limited, technical and also public safety diving instructor. Well, you know, from the name itself, I'm sure everybody knows that Commander Vish has been in the military for a while, but I shall not expand on that. So herewith, Vish, I'll hand it over to you and introduce the session for the day. Thank you.
Thanks, Nora, and good morning to everyone who's joined us here for this lovely webinar panel on ADEX. And this is a great privilege to be at the virtual expo. And I'm going to start with Paul. So Paul is the territory director for PADI Asia Pacific, and he's been in the dive industry for over 20 years now as a PADI dive instructor, PADI instructor examiner, course director, and a regional manager. He's been at various places all throughout his career as a diving instructor and an examiner, and now lives in Bali. We have with us also Siddharth Saini, who is the general manager for SSI India and the founder of Purple Octopus India. He's also an SSI dive master and joins us today from Bombay. We have with us again Sejal Mehta, who is a writer and editor, and she's been very focused on wildlife and various science communities, and has been writing for publications, the Indian Express, Mongo Bay, Live Mint, and presently works as the editor for Marine Life of Mumbai, which is an amazing little organization that does a lot of community outreach work in Bombay. And Dr. Naveen Nambudri is a PhD in marine biology, and he's the founder trustee of Dakshin Foundation, working as its director right now. Again, he's worked in various coastal ecosystems and island systems across India. He heads the biodiversity and resource monitoring program for Dakshin and is here with us today. So what we're going to be talking about today is ethical diving practices and a little bit of diving safety in terms of organizational dive safety when we look at diving in India. And the focus is going to be primarily India-based, but with a lot of information that we have available to us from the various agencies. And so I'm going to start off with Paul. Would you like to take on the stage and tell us about the initiatives that PADI has towards conservation and your views on ethical diving and safety?
Yeah, let me just thank you very much, Vish. Welcome, everybody. Good to see you all out there. If it's the morning from the Americas, hello. Good afternoon in India, and good evening in Singapore. My name is Paul Tosh, and I'm Territory Director of PADI. And I am just talking at the moment until I share my screen with you. I hope everybody can see my screen. Is that working okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So over the years, we've been very, very fortunate where the dive industry has continues to grow, especially in India. For as long as I've been working at PADI, and for as far back as the figures that I have available, the dive industry and the dive professionals and dive businesses have grown year on year on year. And this gives us a really good opportunity to create a community, to make, to come together and be able to make a difference in the kind of protection for our ocean planet. So I just want to go through a little bit of history of how we got here and kind of what the future holds for PADI divers and PADI dive centres and the corporation itself in this regard. So from the very, very beginning, the founders of PADI found out very quickly that divers became very passionate about protecting the ocean. So a very long time ago, they started a non-profitable organisation called Project Aware. So Project Aware was started about 28 years ago now. And in 1989, it released its first Divers Code for Conduct. So it really was the first of its kind out there, where it kind of was a brand that people could get behind, or it could get its information from divers, like many, many years ago when it first started. Since then, it's become its own beast. It's become its own brand, and it's done very, very well, and hasn't needed the PADI brand so much behind it to be able to push it out to divers. Divers are drawn to Project Aware for the work that it's doing. Probably about 10 years ago, I'd say, they changed their focus where they didn't necessarily support every single project that was being conducted around the world, but focused mainly on two things, which was the protection of sharks and rays, and also marine debris. And they've had some great success over the years with that. The latest one that you might all still remember, I think it was last year or maybe the year before, when they had the Sightings meeting coming up, and we hashtagged and got all PADI divers involved, all PADI dive centres involved, divers for Mako, and that was a really good win because we actually got that shark protected, and you know that's down to the PADI divers and obviously Project Aware pushing that forward. The other thing they really concentrated on is, which everybody would kind of be aware of, is the marine debris, and Project Aware is the only underwater marine debris survey that's available. And for over the years, PADI dive masters, instructors, dive centres have been making these surveys, have been collecting this information. They've been adopting dive sites to keep clean. They've been educating people with Project Aware Dive Against Debris courses. And this, you know, it came to a point, I think last year, where they recorded their 1 millionth piece of trash that had been removed from the ocean, which is a great number and obviously a sad number that comes with it. But because of the data that they've had, and PADI divers around the world making every dive a debris dive, scientists now have picked up this information, have picked up this resource, and are now using this to be able to create more studies on whether the impact of trash on land has a significant impact on the trash in the ocean, and obviously where they're living as well. So they've picked up a couple of really high-end scientists that are doing this work and being able to kind of use the data that PADI divers have kind of put in there. So we've always supported Project Aware. You may remember, I think probably about 2015, PADI was bought by a company, and one of the reasons they chose to acquire PADI was because of the connection it had with the ocean and the ability it had to be able to put out a message for saving the planet, or its environmental practices. Since that time, our direction kind of changed quite a lot. You know, we've always wanted to be the best in the world, and that's quite natural, but also trying to be not just the best for the planet. It's not just best at the planet, but also best for the planet. Okay. Sorry, I've missed a couple of slides there. It didn't work. I'll click through. So since then, we brought out our 4 pillars of change, okay? And that's kind of where our kind of ethos kind of started from, and kind of changed from about that 2015. So not only was we just looking after Project Aware and what they were doing, but also we kind of extended it to the 4 pillars. One was kind of healing and wellness, so mainly to do with how diving could help people. And we brought out the courses with adaptive teaching and put a spotlight on that. Obviously, Project Aware looks after the ocean health and marine animals and divers there to do their best for that. And then PADI's reaching out into the communities and basically giving dive centres the platform and the investment that they need to be able to interact and reach out to communities, and to be able to give them opportunities to earn income, not just from fishing or from local farming and stuff, but get into that dive industry, being able to kind of come up with a sustainable tourism model. Since then, Paddy has not only just been supporting Project Aware. Since 2015, we've been using our brand and communicating to the dive industry itself and to Paddy divers about some other great partnerships that we've come up with. Beforehand, we just used the non-profit of Project Aware, but now we've got that big responsibility to be able to try and get other NGOs and non-profit organisations that are like-minded with Paddy and Project Aware in the dive industry, but also helping them get their message out there. So since around that sort of time, we've been doing partnerships. One of them is with Global Ghost Gear Initiative, GGGI. I think I can get that right. And I mean, the biggest plastic polluter that we have is obviously fishing nets and fishing gear that goes into the ocean. So these guys are putting a spotlight on what's happening there and obviously creating or helping create legislation to be able to get all this ghost gear out of the water as well. And obviously we put our brand behind Mission Blue. Dr. Sylvia, the legend, was lucky enough to be able to partner up with her and her mission to be able to get these hope spots around the planet, to be able to get some more marine protected areas as well. So we're trying to help her put that message across to all the Paddy divers as well, so they know what's happening. And lastly, the one that we've recently partnered up with is Reef World, which is also part of like Greenfins. And we got a kind of a mission together to be able to create a sustainable business model. And with the partnership with Greenfins, we're coming up with the tools to be able to give to dive centres to make sure that their business practices are sustainable and eco-friendly as well. So we've been teaming up with those and hopefully be able to get more of that out. We do have an issue with India at the moment to be able to get Greenfins in there. I think Vish mentioned that in one of his webinars just recently about that link that we're having. It seems to be working very well in places like Malaysia, Indonesia and Thailand that are in the kind of close proximity as well. So they've been doing very well with that. So what we've done before is we took it on ourselves with Project Aware and putting it out to Paddy divers, and now we're supporting other NGOs. And I think the next natural step is to be able to push this forward through into the dive community, to be able to make themselves responsible, obviously, for the oceans themselves. So back in November at DEMA, Paddy announced its mission to be able to get 1 billion torchbearers. I know 1 billion may not seem a lot of people to everybody in India, with the 1.2, 1.4 billion that you have there, depending where you read. But you know, we're looking to be able to try and reach a massive amount. It's not just 1 million people that get certificated each year through Paddy, but we are trying to reach not just divers. We're trying to reach snorkelers. We're trying to reach kayakers, wakeboarders, surfers, fishers, people that go down to down to the beach, down to the ocean, or touch the water. So our mission is to be able to get them to kind of make a pledge and to become a torchbearer to be able to protect the ocean. Okay, so for that, we're not just putting the responsibility onto the core leaders in the dive industry, like the training agencies or the dive centres or the instructors, but trying to make that movement worldwide, making it everybody's responsibility to be able to make those choices. And what we've done is to be able to try and create a torchbearer. Sorry, I've lost my slide. Is it working? Sorry. Be able to create 1 billion torchbearers. So what we've done is made it quite a simple process for them to be able to do, where they can pledge. They can then obviously make the right choices, like we've been doing in the dive industry for years, like instructors, their peers have been doing for years, but be able to do that on every level, not just in diving, when they're surfing, when they're at the beach, when they're fishing, when they're doing any sort of water sport activity. Then be able to spread the news themselves. Once they become a torchbearer, they can then invite their peers and invite people that they're with to be able to do that, and then take action to any way that they want to as well. To be able to do that, so this is our kind of our new mission, guys. To be able to do that is very, very simple. What they need to do is go on to paddy.com, and then you'll see at the top, the menu bar, you'll see conservation tab. If you click onto that, you'll quite easily, I think it's the first one down there next to the hashtag Save Our Ocean or Save the Ocean. You'll see the button underneath that where they'd be able to register and be able to become a torchbearer and give them the information they need to be able to kind of start to make those changes. So that's kind of Paddy as a brief history of where we started, and then we quickly found out that Paddy divers are very interested and want to make that change, and we created Project Aware that's been successful. Now we're putting our brand and pushing out to as many Paddy divers as we can, to other NGOs and non-profits. And now our final goal is to be able to get this out to 1 billion people as soon as we possibly can. And we've got our plans in place to do that. That's the kind of plan that we have. Does anybody have any questions?
Right, Paul, that was amazing. The great insight into what Paddy is doing with the Torchbearer program. I'm sure a lot of people haven't even heard about it yet, because it's pretty new. And with the lockdown starting, a lot of people haven't even got the chance to, meet their dive instructors, which is not really nice. But we'll live with it. We'll all live with it. So there was one thing I wanted to talk about, part of the healing part of one of the what you call pillars, is that in India we have the Operation Blue Freedom, which is being spearheaded by Major Vivek Jacob, who is also an ex-serviceman, and looking towards helping people with disabilities and people with ex-servicemen with disabilities to dive and use diving as a medium for them to get well, and sort of which is also something in the UK. Deep Therapy, which is an organization which is looking at disabled service members to dive, and which is a really great initiative for PTSD. I also I've been watching you do the 25 for 25 against PTSD, which is a great initiative. Yeah. Dr. Nambudri, anything about the information you get in terms of from divers through their logbooks on as scientific research? Can you use that information from what divers give us?
At the moment, we don't collect that information. We obviously have the information of those that go on to do the courses, and we know who's actively teaching it. But we don't have that information available to be able to share. No.
So, Dr. Nambudri,
yeah.
With you?
Yes. So I'll be talking about one such program that we've kind of piloted in the Andaman Islands for the past couple of years or more, and I think there's a major role for people who are in any way engaged with the dive industry to contribute to generating information, because unlike the land where you can manage your natural resources because you've been living with it, it's way more easier to engage and understand what's happening there. But out at sea, it's only from a little bit of researchers, divers here and there, going out and doing those surveys. All information we know about marine systems is from there and from scientific research expeditions and stuff, but we really don't know much. And you guys are people who do engage in recreational and other kinds of diving are basically eyes out there on the reefs, and we're talking about increasing number of eyes out there on reefs, and there's each and every one of those observations are valuable and tell you a lot. And as a scientist, I can tell you how valuable each of those observations are. So translating that into some kind of actionable information is really critical, and I'm sure Sejal will also have to add a lot more about this from their own work in Maharashtra and stuff. But if you really want to make a change, you need to convert those. Make it a little bit more than just recreation, right? It's also a way of giving back to the places where you've gone and enjoyed and taken something out of from there. So it's in a way, I'll be talking about that a little bit more in detail in my talk, but we can discuss that along with that as well.
Okay. I'm just going to call upon Sid now, and he's going to give us the latest with what SSI is doing and SSI India specifically is doing about ethical diving and ecology and conservation-based programs. Sid, over to you.
Right. Thank you so much, Vish. A very good evening to everyone here in India and the rest of Asia, and good morning to you, Vish. And thank you for taking the time and the trouble to wake up so early and be a part of this with us. At this moment, in case you have some issues with regards to my internet connectivity, please let me know, because we suddenly lost the power where I am, and I've tried to connect in via my hotspot. So in case you can't see my screen or can't hear me clearly. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Great. Excellent. Thank you so much. All right. So what I'm going to do is give a little bit of a background about the SSI Blue Oceans program, and explain what the whole program is about and why it is something that anybody who maybe is not even a diver can look at doing. And thereafter talk about some small initiatives that SSI has been taking in India, especially during this lockdown period, to try and spread the awareness a little bit more amongst the diving community. Okay, so one of the major underlying factors of the Blue Oceans program is that negative environmental impacts are due to a lack of knowledge and information. I've seen this personally firsthand. It is not desire to cause harm. If there have been moments, there have been times where, while being on the island, being at the diving destination, I have spoken to someone who I've seen doing something, that could.
Okay, I think we have some difficulty with Sid, and I'm going to ask maybe Sejal to put up her presentation, and then we can wait for a bit till the time Sid comes back. Sid, is that okay with you? Yeah.
I'm going to share my screen. 1 second.
And we'll come back to Sid a bit later. Maybe once things get a little bit better. Yeah, Sejal, go ahead.
Yeah, can you see it?
Yeah.
Excellent. Here we go. So hello everyone. I'm going to actually ask all of you to come a little away from the deep and come closer to the shore, the intertidal zone to be specific. And I have to say, Vish, intertidal representation in a talk about ethical diving, pollution, conservation of marine spaces is just wonderful. So thank you for that. Because if we've seen anything in the last 3 years at Marine Life of Mumbai, it's that the health of the ocean impacts the health of a coast, impacts the health of a city. So I think it's really nice it might seem like a detour, but a vital one for people from the marine community to look at the slice of the ecosystem a little more closely. So just let me know if I lag or if you can't see the screen or whatever. And I'm going to take you very quickly through some observations from Mumbai. And I borrowed photos from my team, and the ones that have no credit are mine. I'm going to start with the creature that has actually inspired our logo, this beautiful Nidarian, the Porpita, a name so nice you got to say it twice. The logo is done by Gaurav Patil, one of our team members. It comes every monsoon, but COVID has so far not allowed us to go and say hi to it. This then is our workspace. This is in the intertidal zone, an area that is revealed at low tide and is covered at high tide. We have a couple of hours before we go meet its residents, say hello to everything there, and then the tide quite forcefully pushes us out. When I talk of shared spaces, the intertidal is such a beautifully shared space, because if you see this photo, you can see how there's a spiral melongena sea snail egg case right in the forefront. There's a fishing boat right at the back. There's a man-made construction sort of thing even further behind. There's a crow that's waiting for its dinner. And so many other animals that we can't even see here right now in this small patch of the intertidal. So imagine an entire coastline. So many creatures live here. There's an octopus here just off Burley. I'm sure all of you are familiar with one of the busiest intersections in Bombay. And just off that is this gorgeous creature in a tide pool, outside a tide pool. And there are then some creatures that you can't even see. They haven't been born yet. This is a video. Let me know if you can see it. Is it visible? Are you able to? Excellent.
Yeah.
This is Indothias sea snail egg case. And you can see the tiny little eggs moving inside it. So basically what I'm trying to say is that against the backdrop of this crazy, hectic, bustling city that moves constantly at such a breakneck pace, with livelihoods and jobs at its very center and core, is a shore where animals are making babies. This is a cowrie, Arabian cowrie laying eggs, having dinner. There's a sea anemone at bandstand. And being extremely Bombay, 2 hermit crabs, their population is just like Bombay. There are way too many of them. So they struggle for space, they struggle for food, they struggle for real estate, which is shells. And in a moment, you're going to see them have a little bit of a scuffle. There you go. So this is exactly like a Mumbai local train, if anybody's been on it. I've often said that you can't find a better metaphor for Bombay than a hermit crab. Which is interesting because on the one time that I have gone diving, which I will not brag about in this group of divers, experienced divers, I actually saw a lot of creatures that I was familiar with because I have done this work on Bombay's intertidal zone, because they were also in the deep sea and they were also on land, like zoanthids, which we have at Priyadarshini Park in Bombay. Schedule 1 species like coral, which are present almost on all our shores. Sea fan from Juhu, imagine, a very, very populated beach. Sea slugs, Kretina at bandstand. And also the Indian Ocean humpback dolphin, which is frequently sighted in the waters around Bombay. Obviously, where there is magic, there are also dark arts. Bombay has a staggering waste management issue. We get trash and pollution from the ocean, of course, all year around. But the monsoon is unfortunately rather generous. And this is the time that we see a lot of waste thrown on the intertidal. That's actually a mattress that floated to shore once on the top right. It was we were quite surprised. We've seen a lot of things and we haven't seen that before. Plastic, as you know, crosses large oceans, continents, breaks down into microplastics, also gets into food streams, extremely toxic. Bombay sees a lot of this. Also sewage, untreated sewage, and this is another monsoon visitor, not as welcome as the Nidarians. Oil in the form of tar balls, and it's actually disposal systems in Bombay are far from ideal. So sometimes these get buried, they get washed back into the ocean, or they find themselves in landfills. All of these options are less than ideal. And and also these wash up on very, very popular beaches. That's Juhu. So there are children playing around it. There are people walking around it. So what does Marine Life of Mumbai do with all these treasures that it has? We work under the umbrella brand of Coastal Conservation Foundation. And Marine Life of Mumbai uses 2 vehicles, basically, to propel conservation movements. One is outreach, which is simple, really. We take people closer to the animals on the shore, quite literally, and very epic manner, as the girl's cap says. I'm not sure if that's my photo or from the team. Also, through online outreach, we do a lot of science communication. We make things very palatable for people to understand, because that's the aim, to bring people as close as possible to what is happening right, like within minutes of their homes, in their backyard. And we also had intertidal festivals. We've had 2 intertidal festivals. That's actually Umid Mistry, who came down and spoke to our participants about responsible photography, which actually also wish that, we were discussing, and you're talking about ethics in the diving community. When you have a beach that's so open to humans, you don't see it as a wild space. And I think the animals you meet there, you sort of don't, it doesn't occur to you that it's the same, it might require the same amount of respect. So this is a great opportunity for us to talk to people about the respect, that maintain some distance, shoot responsibly, don't touch them, don't handle them, don't take anything home. It's absurd how many times you have to tell people to put down that shell, or to put down a sea fan and not take it home. Basically, outreach has just helped us with a lot of conversation about conservation. The other vehicle we've used and we are delighted with is this wonderful platform, iNaturalist. And this is something that Naveen briefly brought up, where you say that recreational stuff can also lead to science and data collection. iNaturalist is where we have a project. Marine Life of Mumbai has its own project, and tide poolers across the city have been uploading their observations on this. And it gets verified by global experts. And this is actually very special, because the observations here formed, because it's open access data, activist organizations in Mumbai used this data in their petitions against the coastal road that's coming up. So we thought that was pretty special. I think intertidal spaces are magical. The Mumbai one, of course, but all other intertidal spaces. Because of course they are a space for wildlife, they are a space for livelihoods, but they're also a space for us, yeah. I mean, it's a bridge between us and the sea. It's a bridge between land and sea. And in a really, really busy space like Bombay, it provides escape, maybe pause. It provides relief, comfort, all this at no cost. And I think that's a gift to a city. In that, I think we've had some amount of success in rekindling that connect with the ocean, where people come to the shore, they ask questions, they see beauty, they see wildlife. And in unprotected areas, the shores are not protected areas. And they ask questions, they see the pollution, they see the beauty, they see construction, and they have questions that we try and answer. And we get to learn a lot as well. And we sense that they go back with a lot more than they came with, and they pay it forward, and they tell other people about it. And that's how we build communities. And probably that is how we will save some things, if not all. That's it.
That's awesome, Sejal. And thanks so much for sharing these lovely images with us. And one thing which most of us know about intertidal spaces is dock rickets from Monterey Bay. And especially, I'm sure Naveen would be really happy to hear his name. One of the pioneer marine biologists and intertidal specialists, so to say, in Monterey. And for me as well, I've lived across the ocean of almost all my life, and 25 years of my life at sea. And intertidal zones have been, something which I really love. Even just in the harbor, you have, as the tide goes up and down, you see so much just how the barnacles behave on the piers and all, and the posts over there. It's just amazing, and how human beings interact with the intertidal zone, again, is something which we all need to think about. And a lot of people might be thinking, what are we talking about? We're not talking about diving at all, but this all comes back to us as divers once we go into the water, and we need to look at every little species, and it starts right from the shore. So
exactly.
It's great to have you here about the intertidal zone. Rather than just talk about the deep ocean and the 5 gyres and stuff like that, which is also important, but it starts from where we stand.
I think that's also a gateway, right? I think the intertidal forms like a gateway. When you think of the ocean, you think only of deep ocean. You think of big animals, and so it's really beautiful for people to go and see that it starts from here, as you said.
Right. And so, Sid, are you ready? Are we good to go with you?
Yes, I'm going to try. And give my presentation again. As you can see, it's all dark behind me. It's kind of eerie. I'm alone in my office, but that's all right.
Yeah, and as the sun comes up here, it's like, so yeah. I saw
it's Murphy's Law, you know, when you just want everything to work perfectly fine, something has to go wrong, right? So, well, small hiccup. I'm going to start sharing my screen now. Thank you, Sejal. That was wonderful. I mean, I have been following you and, you know, and Marine Life for Mumbai on Instagram, and it's an amazing job that you guys do for you know, raising awareness amongst people, especially in Bombay, in this melee that of a city that we have. You guys are a breath of fresh air.
All of you, please come when COVID allows everyone to. Please, everyone is welcome. We'd love to take you around.
And you saved your back to us today.
Sorry?
She took on the. I think you saved his back as well.
Okay, can you see my screen now? Is this good?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, excellent. I'm just going to go on to the next slide. So again, just talking about Blue Oceans, which is an SSI program, and the underlying philosophy in this is that, you know, there is just a lack of awareness and knowledge that causes a negative environmental impact, and people don't really have a willful desire to cause harm. You know, if you go and tell someone and explain to them without being confrontational that, you know, they are doing something wrong, that something, if they would do it otherwise or in some other way, would definitely help, people will listen. It's just about communicating it the correct way and, you know, increasing knowledge and awareness, which is, like I said, the underlying philosophy of Blue Ocean. So it's creating an awareness and positive change for marine and freshwater environmental challenges through education, outreach, and a network of environmentally responsible businesses, which are the SSI training centers. And the intent of the program is to use scientific research, real-world examples, and practical solutions that can be used at different levels to motivate students to take an active role. Everyone doesn't need to start becoming a policy change, you know, someone who's involved in policy change. Right from a personal level, things that we do on an everyday basis, things that sustainable choices that we can take in our daily life are all small things that will help, you know, make a difference. And that is what the Blue Oceans program tries to spread, tries to talk about. So how do you become a responsible diver? This is one of the most basic aspects of the program. It's to commit to personally protect the environment. It is, you know, to follow the Sustainable Diver Code, which is found in every SSI training program, as well as the Blue Oceans program. It encourages people to take part in cleanups. Doesn't need to be always underwater. A lot of cleanups need to happen above water as well, and we see that happening across Bombay too. You know, using energy responsibly to minimize your waste. You know, because a lot of plastic ends up in the oceans each year, fatal consequences, and now it's become so bad that it's all coming back again into our food cycle. You know, even via grains of salt. So it's something that we really need to ensure that we clean up our act. You know, as divers, monitor your dive site. I know today, and as you know, being a part of Purple Octopus, we've also realized that there has been a lot of sales of knives. I mean, previously, you know, people considered knives to be a kind of show, but I have actually seen now divers go down with that knife, actually cut the nets and the ghost lines and all that are there, taking active measures to protect their particular dive sites and marine life around them. I know. One small thing, I mean, even if you start encouraging your friends, family, acquaintances, you know, that is more than enough. One of the reasons where this was when I became a diver, or I, you know, in fact, did my master diver course way back in 2009. My instructor at that point of time, Vikas Nairi, who currently is in the Neil Islands in the Andamans. I was, well, a kid, 18 years of age, didn't know much of what I was doing, was there spending my father's money in the Andaman Islands, and, well, smoking on the boat. Well, because it was cool. I still do that, not so, well, you know, brazenly now. And I made the mistake of just flicking a butt into the sea. For the rest of the dive and for the rest of the boat trip to the dive site and back, Vikas Nairi gave me a full lowdown and a lecture of what I did was wrong and what it cost. I can assure you from that day, I have made sure that I have never done anything like that, nor have I let anyone around me do anything like that. A small thing. He took his time. He was pretty strict about it. He took his time about it, but he did explain to me how, you know, it causes a negative impact. Okay, avoid actions that harm ocean and its inhabitants. Okay, be careful of how you fin, be careful of where you go. Don't go get into overhangs that you don't believe you can, go through without raising up the silt. There was a talk that we had organized with Dakshin Foundation when Naveen said that only, more than, Naveen, correct me here if I'm wrong, 2% is only the marine life that we see above water. The rest of it is all within the sand. Is that right?
The 2% is the one that's, the free swimming forms. The rest are all what you call benthic. The 98% of life in the oceans is attached to the bottom. Yeah.
Yeah, and imagine that. So if you're going to dive and you're going to, kick up sand, you're going to be disrupting a lot of ecosystems for a lot of creatures that we don't even realize are there. Prevent waste from entering the water. We have seen people eat your Lay's packets, chips, and just chuck them wherever they are, whether they're on a boat or whether they're near a beach or whether they're on pier. You need to, don't get confrontational, because I've had the experience of being confrontational and also not being confrontational, and not being confrontational helps. It kindly makes people sit up and take notice and understand. Cut hanging ropes and collect floating nets. A lot of our divers have started doing this today. A lot of, like I said, they buy knives and they're actually putting it to good use. And do not feed, touch, or harass any underwater life. Taking souvenirs, taking shells from the ocean, picking up something from the seabed and putting it in your BC pocket and getting it with you just for a souvenir. No, I have seen divers do that, and it is our chance here to educate them. So the SSI program, the Blue Oceans program, talks about this. It talks about how we should not do any of this, and how being a responsible diver is needed today, so that we can continue the sport that we love for a very long time. Okay, so what is the Blue Oceans program all about? So it introduces many of the global challenges that our oceans face today, especially the top three, which is the threat to coral reefs and their ecosystems, shark finning practices that happen across the world that are going unregulated and unchecked, and obviously the major issue of ocean plastics. It also talks about the importance of marine protected areas and how important it is to develop them and influence policymakers to start increasing the expanse of marine protected areas, especially in India. While the Andamans has a lot, the rest of the mainland of India requires a lot more marine protected areas than it currently does. So each section of the Blue Oceans program gives an overview about the threat and the issue. It talks about the threats and the challenges. And while it paints a very scary picture, it also says what are the good things that some people and some initiatives and some organizations across the world are doing to counter that threat and that challenge. It talks about how a person can help individually and what they can do to learn more. So all the references, all the case studies, the links of all of that are available on the program, so that in case you, let's say, want to know more about shark finning, there's a lot more that you can learn beyond the program as well. So it's a simple and effective tool to increase awareness and what actions can be taken to improve, protect, and preserve the marine environment. So why the SSI Blue Oceans program? Now, one of the first things is it is free. I'm not saying this is a very great thing to do, but it helps for a wider reach. It helps people, divers and non-divers alike, can read the materials, can understand, and at least have a base foundation to start from towards, for their journey towards marine conservation. What the program also does, it presents real-world case studies for both environmental threats and the conservation initiatives that are being taken. And it compels you to sit up. It tells you small things that people have done that have made a difference, right up till major policy changes that you can be a part of. It's designed to train you to make intelligent and informed decisions, and suggest initiatives that you can take at different levels of environmental involvement for bringing about change. One other important thing, and this is something that we are working on currently in India, is to ensure that all the SSI training centers today become Blue Ocean rated centers. Where all the staff follow the responsible diver code, adhere to sustainable tourism guidelines and the Blue Ocean philosophy, promote and conduct more ecology programs so that people are more aware about their environment that they're diving in, because that always helps in taking the right step and making an informed decision. The dive center follows the correct waste disposal and recycling procedures because, like for the Andaman Islands, it is a major issue. Garbage collection is disposal is a major issue for the islands today, because where does it go from the islands? As in, it costs money to send it from a Havelock or a Neil to Port Blair, and further costs even more money to send it from Port Blair to the mainland in Chennai. Okay, and there are people. There is this project called the Kachrewala project, started by this girl Garima, if I'm not wrong. She was there. She came to the island. She saw this issue. She never went back. She's been actually doing something to try and address this problem right at the grassroots level. Talking to your restaurants, resorts, about not using plastic, moving away to more sustainable cutlery, and it's making a difference. It is actually truly making a difference. And for the SSI Blue Ocean centers to conduct environmental protection and public cleanups, nearly all our dive centers today do this. All of them. Even if they don't organize it themselves, if someone else organizes it, they go and do that over there. We have Coastal Impact, which is associated with Barracuda diving in India, that does a lot of conservation programs, talks about a lot of conservation, does a lot of beach cleanups. We have platypus escapes in Vizag that was spoken about by our Prime Minister Narendra Modi, about what a good job they're doing in Vizag to clean up the place. They were also picked up by the BBC for the amount of effort that they're putting. It's a very small team, but they're doing quite a lot to maintain their environment that they are a part of. And we are going to be working with dive centers in India to get this. Our target is to make every single SSI training center in India by 2021 to be fully Blue Ocean compliant. It's not easy. It's a massive checklist of 3 pages with a lot of things that they need to do and change. But we will be working with them, to get up to speed and get up to standard. Okay. Some of SSI's global initiatives for environmental sustenance. Well, SSI they had a digital revolution in 2014, where today 50+ courses are available only digitally. It has been a slow process of phasing out all paper manuals, and it's resulted in obviously a lot of saved resources. It has reduced an overall carbon footprint, and obviously the Blue Oceans program, which is now a free online environmental program, like I said, not geared only for divers, but geared for everyone and anyone who wants to go through that program. You don't need to be a diver to go through the Blue Oceans program. There are 20, and as of once the lockdown hit, actually, SSI also made it a point to ensure that about 20 courses, more than 20 courses today, have all their exams online, further eliminating the use of paper altogether. Digital certification cards have always been an SSI USP from 2014, something that's available on their app as soon as they get certified. While there are cases where people do ask or want the plastic card and the feel of having the certification card in their hand, the ones that SSI prints are made of environmentally friendly bio-PVC. But like, for example, in India, I've had requests from divers or from dive centers that have said, so-and-so customer wants a plastic card. And we have actually gone back to them saying, while we can provide it to you and we have a printer right here in office, we discourage people from trying to use plastic cards. We try and show them the value of having it digitally on their app itself. Another thing that SSI, Mares, have been doing across the board, since we're distributors for Mares as well, we know that they have been changing the kind of packaging that they have. It's reducing the plastic that comes for the packaging. It's now all either cardboard based or paper based, and it's a significantly less use of plastic now, and it will continue for some more time till we are well 100% free of any sort of plastic packaging material across the board. Something that SSI India has been doing towards ethical diving practices, which we believe starts from basic awareness. So we've been offering our SSI platform during this lockdown period to our training centers to conduct awareness campaigns. Coastal Impact, like I said, has been making great use of that. And it's not like they're talking only about diving, right? They have to be talking about solar energy. They're talking about alternate forms of energy, things about how cleanups can be done, or apart from just the normal, conservation programs regarding turtles and other sea creatures. We have also been conducting subject matter expert webinars on the science of diving course, which was something that SSI offered as a free certification, as a free specialty across the globe, something that got us a lot of traction in India as well. And also the ecology courses offered by SSI. So when we had someone, we had thankfully, Naveen and the team at Dakshin have agreed to be a part of the webinars with us, and it's their team and their subject matter experts who are taking the webinars. And Naveen came and spoke about the marine ecosystems, and just that one talk, it showed us a great spike in registrations for ecology course signups. A lot of people came forward saying yes, they're interested and they want us. We've actually got emails from random divers across the country saying please organize more ecology webinars. We would like to know more about the ocean. Everyone's sitting at home, everyone's missing the sea. It's giving them a chance to be a part of something different and learn more. So it's been very successful for us in that way. Also, we're working with our SSI training center.
I need to stop you here. I need to stop you. I need to get Naveen on board because we're running out of time.
Right. Okay. All right.
We have we just got 5 minutes left. And Naveen, I'm really sorry. We've been pushing things a little bit late. Dr. Naveen, are you ready? Can we go ahead with you?
Yeah. Siddharth has to stop sharing the screen, then I can.
Yeah. 1 second.
Okay, sorry, Siddharth.
Figure this out.
No,
Naveen. It's better you talk than I do the talking. I'm very glad you're taking over.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so just before getting on to the topic that I'm going to talk about, I'd just like to introduce myself and my organization very briefly. I'm Naveen Namboothri. I work by training. I'm a marine biologist. Started working in the on marine systems, primarily in the Nicobars and Andaman and Nicobar Islands. So, obviously you got hooked to marine systems, hook, line, and sinker there. So, starting from there, we started Dakshin Foundation as an organization primarily working on coastal and marine issues in India, which are incredibly diverse and incredibly complex, unlike many of the issues and challenges that you face in the developed countries or in the Western world. Issues in the developing countries are very different, and I think you need very different nuanced approaches, understanding of the social context and the cultural context and all of that before tampering with systems, because quite often well-intentioned interventions also become a problem in itself. So we've been, the whole purpose of setting up Dakshin was to kind of build an alternative narrative to a very one is a very too science heavy kind of an approach, but also like a very developing country kind of an approach, which is very different in terms of your conservation challenges and all of that. It's very different. So that's the context for setting up Dakshin. And over the years, it's been 12 years since we started. We started very small with 5 people, and now we have about 40 odd people working for us. And the journey has been quite fascinating. We've come across multiple issues, challenges, things that are, incredibly complicated, impossible issue kind of wars to fight and win. But in between all of that, what's been keeping us going is that there's an increasing interest, particularly in a country like India, in, the coastal marine systems. And a lot of that is thanks to the diving industry. And, but here I'd like to flag a point is that, there's also a bit of a lost opportunity here, because India's middle and upper middle classes, we're talking about, Paul, you mentioned about the population in India, right? If you like 1.6 billion or whatever, right? So, and a large part of that is middle and upper middle class, and making diving and access to marine systems accessible to a lot more of those communities will make a huge difference. And I think there's a lost opportunity here because of the pricing of this, how the dive industry is like a bit of an upper middle class and above kind of a hobby. It's not something that's accessible to all. Marine systems are not accessible to all. So I think except the intertidal, where you can take folks and let them see those things. If you really want to make a change in the community, and I don't think there's a business loss there, because you really have you compensate that through scale, right? Just the amount of people who tap into that with a slightly reduced, affordable, access to marine systems, there's a huge opportunity there. But okay, that's one part of the, couple of points that I wanted to flag. But in this particular talk, I just wanted to talk about one of those, smaller projects that we have at Dakshin, which was basically kind of started off with our program with fish workers, where, a lot of the fish worker community in India, we are talking about close to 5 million people spread across the entire coastline of India, 3,500 odd villages scattered across the entire coastline of India. So including the islands. So we started off a small initiative in the Lakshadweep group of islands and tried to look at, how do you get the fisher communities to contribute data to, scientific management. They are observing things on a day-to-day basis and, on a very regular basis. So how do you get them to share that information back to us rather than just, waiting for scientists like me as well to come and tell them how best to manage their fisheries? These are folks who very well know how to manage their fisheries. They don't need people trained in a particular discipline to come and tell them. But the thing is, there's no such conversations happening. So we wanted to help create a platform where their day-to-day observations, even just the number of fish they catch, their sizes, what time they spawn, just very simple information like that at scale. And I'm talking about all those numbers that I mentioned earlier, makes a massive difference in and as a scientist, I can see the opportunity that it presents itself right there. And then came the thought of thinking about the dive community, right? There's a huge dive community out there, and like I said, you guys are all the eyes and ears out there, because there's only so much that researchers themselves can go out and collect information about, but there's a massive amount of information that the dive community can contribute to this. So that's how the whole concept of Reef Log started. um, I would say this is probably the first citizen science project that specifically involved divers in contributing to reef management. And then honestly, it started off as a small initiative. We tried this out on the Andaman Islands. A few of the dive shops there got involved in it. It went on for a couple of years, but then we really couldn't kind of maintain the momentum. But I think there's still like a lot of potential in what we started out there. And I'm happy to get into conversations and see how much is it. This is something that we as reef people interested in marine conservation have kind of conceived, and thought of as an initiative. But it would be really good, because the main participants we expect here are the dive community. So and this was done with a lot of consultation, but I think there's still a lot to improve out here. So what it is just basically two simple slates that were put together. One is specifically looking at the fish communities, and then also another, plate that looks at the invertebrate communities on reefs. And the way these species have been picked one is because of the role these species play in the ecosystems. Like groupers, for instance, are like, aside from some of the reef sharks, are one of the larger predators on and again, these things vary very contextually. These things vary. You can't apply the same kind of a framework, say it's somewhere on the mainland coast of India. This works specifically for the Andaman site, because we developed this for the Andamans. And the way these species have been picked, like I said, they have a functional role in the ecosystem, but they also have a particular, biological indicators. They're very good indicators of, what's happening in the system. And some of them are commercially very important, which means looking at their presence and absence will tell you how much of fishing pressure or exploitation pressure they face. So a lot of thought went into designing some of these slates. We got them illustrated, really beautiful illustrations and stuff. And then on the back of the slates are more, and the way it works is you just put tally marks against each of those. And like I said, this is how the groups have been picked. There are corallivores, there are invertivores, and this is mostly developed for the, communities who dive on reefs. And yeah, and there are the other, larger, the other invertebrates that are more obvious on reefs. For instance, an urchin, right? Urchin is one of what you call the keystone species on reefs, which is basically they can determine whether reefs can survive or completely decline. Their populations can determine. And the presence of an invertivore, like say a Napoleon wrasse, matters in controlling their populations. And their populations are also critical in maintaining that the algae population that could otherwise increase a lot. So long and short of it is, carefully handpicked species that we picked for the program. And the way it works is just simple tally marks. You go out there, and these are slates that have been designed to, be taken underwater. We had also designed a small, hole, punched a hole through the side of these slates where you can put in a, pencil, and it's just handed out to, and we kind of put in all the expenses, got a small grant. In fact, Paddy Foundation support is what supported a printing of a lot of these slides and all of that. And interestingly, it worked for a bit of time, but slowly, because we didn't have a specific person following up with dive shops and all of that, it kind of slowly fizzled out. But this is it. You just put in tally marks, and then someone from the dive center just picks up that dive slate and enters it onto a platform. And then we also do have rare sightings recorded, because these are all valuable information, because you see a reef shark in one particular place every time you dive, and suddenly you don't see it anymore, or the number of turtles, or the number of sea snakes that you see in some place. All this is like valuable information. And we also have a bit of information on other stuff, like collection of trash and all of that, and also to kind of record special events. And this is really critical. Sometimes you see big aggregations of fish basically aggregating to spawn. So some of these very simple observations, rather than and in a way, this is also a way of giving back for every person who comes and dives in a particular locality. If you really want to give something in return back to those, your 2 bits to contributing to those systems, participating in initiatives like this, not just Reeflog, but any initiative that collects a bit more information or uses your observation for a greater cause, is like always very critical. Yeah, so we've been playing around with multiple logo ideas and stuff like that. So I just wanted to that's about it. That's my talk. And I just wanted to wrap up with that, and also to say that organizations like ours, not just ours, there are very few in the marine sector, but generally environmental organizations, there are quite a few working in multiple sites. And I would really encourage people in the diving industry to reach out actively. Like, it's only recently we got to, get into conversations with Sid and now with you, Vish. So, some of these opportunities are there to kind of, just having a conversation over a coffee could actually lead to many other ideas and opportunities that really matter, right? And it's also a great way to kind of engage the people that that reach out to you as part of your operations to to contribute a lot more to the overall cost.
One of the really interesting things that you saw, which you had, is the logbook. And I've since, my logbook in my dive shop isn't as, what should I say, impressive as yours, but it's similar. It's got a table and it's got a list of fish that you see and you can take across, and you've got, again, human impacts 1 to 5, and so it's like a checklist which anybody goes in, they just can easily do. And that's something which is really good for us. And we're talking about ethical diving practices. Sid brought out something about, one of the points in the SSI Blue Oceans program is feeding fish, and that's something which we see operators do quite often, carrying breadcrumbs and stuff like that. So as divers, I would suggest that anybody who's seeing any operator taking bread or breadcrumbs and feeding the fish, you're basically creating an anthropogenic change in the animal. And while I'm right now in Louisiana, and I see in the lake here that we've got fish and turtles and even alligators coming and looking for food from human beings because they've got so used to people feeding them. And this is just it's going to change the entire environment. And simple things like when you wear a life jacket on this boat and you're going to be smoking, like Sid was talking about, you might burn a hole through it by mistake, and then it's not a life jacket anymore. And the biggest amount of marine waste so far has been cigarette butts, the largest amount collected. And again, what Sid was talking about, how photographers interact with the ocean during the intertidal zones as well. And I'm sorry, I'm going to conclude this, Paul, I'm just going to use this as my conclusion as well. we're not going to take any questions right now because we kind of, we had a lag in our starting and then we had a lag in between. So we're just going to take questions on the Facebook group. So anybody who has any questions for our experts, please post them on the Facebook group at, Asian Dive Expo, ADEX, which you're live here. I've also put a comment on the live chat here as well. So on the Facebook group, so anybody sees it, please do write in any questions. And I'm sure we can get Naveen and Sejal and Sid and Paul to write back and get the information that you need. But to conclude, so, I mean, all of us are talking about the same thing. So it's like us preaching to the choir. But the idea is, what we're looking at is, and it's really nice to have both Naveen and Sejal here from, a purely conservation background and marine biology background, more than, dive operators. And what we as dive operators and dive agencies are looking at is to get more people involved, which you all are doing, Marine Life of Mumbai's Ocean Outreach and Naveen Saxon Foundation, and it's growing. We might actually hit a huge number with this lockdown, thanks to things being online and things being available for people, like the iNaturalist program and, having that kind of information available. One of the things which I've been trying to do with Scuba Evolution India is cleanups all the time, and every single dive is a Divers Against Debris or a cleanup, ocean cleanup dive. And we've picked up close to around 500 to 600 kilos of garbage last year itself, in the last operation period that we had. And we also unfortunately had to, fortunately for the python, we had to, free a python which was stuck in a net, which some people had discarded on the side. So when we came back to the jetty, there was and people can go on our Facebook group, it's probably over there, of Commander Warrior, who's also my business partner, and he was on the boat, and when we came back, they found a python. So things that your impact in the ocean comes back and impacts you on land as well. And what I was discussing with Sejal about, when I was in Lakshadweep and we had a cyclone and we had almost all the trash come back. And my Lakshadweep dive buddies who are here will probably sound back on that. And even we must have seen that in Andaman, Sid and, Naveen, that the trash that you throw out in your, from boat or anything comes back on the shore, which impacts your life. And as ethical divers and as divers, we need to make ethical choices in terms of not using plastic, carrying a box of snacks rather than a plastic package which we discard, and maybe buying local, looking towards local products rather than buy packaged goods which need obviously a carbon footprint and stuff to move around and things like that. And Nora, do we have any more time to take any questions live, or are we going ahead with thanking everybody for being here and taking the time for the presentation?
I have one question.
Nice.
Can I ask the divers in this group one question? Just
definitely.
I actually wanted to. So like I said, and I also spoke to Vish about this. I'll be very quick. For new divers, people who are going out for the first time, and this is something probably Siddharth you might be able to answer. I think it's, we read all the material and we choose excellent dive shops as well. And but I think there is a certain, I don't know if we need more outreach in this region, but just that because when I went for the first time, and I first ever time, and I think the whole idea of, when you're underwater for the first time in your life, you are thinking about not to touch and not to, yes, of course, but you're also constantly trying to just not drown when it's not possible. But I think your mental balance is sort of shaken. Is there any reading and I will go through all the stuff that you had shared. Is there reading on that for beginners to look at in a little more detail? Is that possible for new divers to do? It's a bit of it's intimidating, to be honest.
I will answer that, and maybe Vish will expand on that. And if you give him maybe the next 2 hours, he will still continue expanding on that. See, the thing is, the reading material is limited. The knowledge that comes from the books is limited. What is going to make a difference to a new diver is the training that is imparted to the diver. There is a reason that all the agencies that are affiliated with RSTC have something called a confined program before you actually enter into the open field. Ideally, technically, in a most ideal scenario, it is to be done in a swimming pool. right? Not on a shore dive. A shore dive is also affecting the marine life that is there. You are going to kick up sand. You are not going to be aware of what you're doing, because at that point of time, you're only going to be worried about yourself, and that's perfectly natural, right? So if the training was done in a confined water program, maybe in a swimming pool with an instructor or a dive school or a dive center that takes the time to train their diver to be completely neutrally buoyant in shallow water itself. Okay, if you can get your confidence there in the water first and then head out to sea, you will be a far better diver. You will have more time to actually notice your surroundings rather than being focused. Oh wow. Rather than being focused. Look at it. I mean, this is getting over, and now the internet and the comes back.
Of course.
But
okay.
Vish can expand on it here. I know he takes a lot of effort with his students, and that's the kind of instructors we need today. Vish,
I'm not going to expand
on your platform.
Let there be light, and there was light. It's perfect. You spoke about the right thing. But Sejal, there is a course called the Psychological Diver, which I will send you a link on, and I'm going to probably write it here. There's a lady, a psychologist, Dr. Laura Walton, who is also a PADI instructor and teaches in the UK. And there's a course called the Psychological Diver, which is available. You can do it online, and it's also a website. And she runs the Fit to Dive page as well on Facebook. And Laura is really amazing.
That's great. I'll look it up. You send me the link. I went with an excellent organization, but I think I was just wondering if there's anything that divers should be doing. So I would love to see that. Thanks.
Dive a little more.
Thank you. And
yes, I will. As soon as COVID is over, you tide pool and I'll come dive.
Thank you for the question.
That's a done deal.
Paul, you want to just have one sentence to just answer Sajal's question just now?
I think it's all covered. The material is there, the reading is there, people do need to find it, but what people generally think about when they're doing their entry-level courses are the safety procedures to be able to go down and to be able to come up safely. I think it's really important that we don't just stop their education there and you continue on with it, and that's where they'll find out that information. So it goes down to education and making sure that you reach them at the beginning. All the reading, all the materials are all there. They all put it there. It's down to the dive instructor. It's down to the dive master. Down to the local community. It's down to your dive buddy. It's down to all the practices that happen. It is all there. A lot of good dive centers, a lot of good dive instructors will put all that out there, and you'll come away with the knowledge that you need. But it's an educational based, and you got to pick your dive instructor and your dive team and your dive center by using the information you've got and asking the right questions. Unfortunately, without the education that we've got, people go into dive centers and then maybe it's not the first question that they're asking. Maybe it's price or something like that, rather than the ability to be able to teach them correctly.
And one of the things is to choose the right dive center. And one of the easiest ways to do is to whichever agency you want to dive with, go onto their website and look for the dive center locator, and they will tell you what kind of dive center they are, what kind of products they have, and based on the agency website and the dive center website should give you a lot of information about what they're being able to do and what they're teaching. And then of course, do your research. That's one of the important things to do.
Sure.
Thank you so much, my panelists, for today to discuss about ethical diving. Foremost, I'd like to thank Sajal to share with us a little bit more on Indian ecology, India marine ecology. Sorry. I'd like to thank you, Paul Tanner from PADI, Asia Pacific. I'd like to thank Naveen Namboothri. I'd like to thank Sid from Dive SSI India and also Purple Octopus. And lastly, I'd like to thank Vish for organizing this for us and went through all the trouble and wake up really early in the morning just to talk to ADEX communities and to share this fantastic knowledge to the community. So once again, thank you. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them on Facebook, and I'm sure this expert panels will answer. Vish, one last word from you before we close over?
Yeah, thank you everybody for being here, and thank you, Nora, for making sure that I wake up early today. It's been a great session, and we had a few glitches in between and in the beginning, but I think overall it went well. And thank you for sharing your thoughts. Naveen, I'm going to catch hold of you and talk to you more about the program for Scuba Evolution India. And I would invite anybody who wants to come diving to go diving with us in Goa. It's pretty brilliant, even though it might seem it's just Goa. There's a lot of good diving around. We have 3 decks. We have technical courses available, and it's a load of fun. Just come down. Thanks, Nora, and thank you, ADEX, for having us here. And we look forward to more such panels and more such things by ADEX.
Thank you so much. See you soon.
Thank you, Nora.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.